Printer can print up to 10 lines per second.
Welcome home, Columbia. Beautiful, beautiful.
This printer can print up to 10 lines per second. This printer can print up to 10 lines per second.
Welcome to lesson 31. I'm calling this lesson mouse margin, and I'll show you why. Let's look at the web page. Notice I'm moving the mouse here. Notice when I get close to this rectangle, what's happening there is we have a whole bunch of divs. And when the mouse is on the divs, they separate. And when the mouse is off the divs, they come together. So they look like one rectangle, but they're not. That's 30 different divs. Okay, so let's look at the code. This is the full code, but I want you to copy this part of it. And then when you're done copying that, we'll write a function, and then I will explain what's going on with the entire program. Okay, so we've got part of it written. We're going to write another function, and then we'll go over what it all means. So function is called adjust margin. And we need to have an event in there because it's looking for a mouse move. If we look above here, window add event listener, mouse move, that calls the function adjust margin. So first line is let all divs equal. We're getting the get elements by tag name because we're collecting all the divs that we just created. And don't worry again, because I will go over this whole thing. Okay, with the for loop, we're going through all these divs. We're going through all divs that we just got by the tag name. So I'm just using J instead of I, because I always use I. And then we're going to test the mouse Y, which I will explain. And there's a reason why I have you type this in. If you copy and paste, you don't learn nearly as much as when you actually type it in. You notice more stuff when you type it in. Trust me, I've been through that 100 times. Copying and pasting is a good way to start, but typing it in is the best way to learn it. And that is it. Let's test it. Whoops. And that is here. So this is the new web page we just created. Let's see if it works. So the mouse is down here and something's not working. So let's grab our View Developer JavaScript console and see if it'll give us any hints. It did. I is not defined. Line 28. Okay, let's see what that says. Line 28 is down here. Okay, that's obvious. We're using J, we're not using I. Save that. Reload it. There it goes. Okay, it works great. So let me tell you what's going on here. Okay. First line, window, add event listener, mouse move. Okay, so what we're saying there is attach an event listener to the whole window. So anything that happens in on this web page, anywhere on the web page, if the mouse moves, then we're going to trigger this adjust margin function. Easy enough. Two variables we start with. One is margin and one is number of divs. And then we have a for loop. We're going to go through some divs. We're not going to go through some divs. We're going to create divs. And there's 30 of them. So the first line in the for loop is let d equal document create element. So we're creating divs. And w is going to be a width. We're just assigning the number 10 to it. And then the next line, we are attaching that to the div style. Width equals w, which is 10 pixels. So the width of the div is 10 pixels, and the height of the div is 100 pixels. The style position is absolute. If that's a little confusing to you, absolute, then do a little study your CSS a little bit more so you understand what absolute positioning is. Style left, that is from the left side of the page. How many pixels is it from the left side of the page? And this is based on I, meaning which div is it, and then the width. So just starting at 0, when I is 0, it would be 1 times the width. So that would be 10 pixels from the left. And then the second one would be I equals 1, so that would be 2 times W, which would be 20 pixels from the left. And the next one would be 30 pixels from the left. And the next one would be 40, etc., etc. So what's happening there is it's taking each div and actually putting it right next to the previous div. So it's kind of stacking them next together. So if you look at the web page, it looks like one rectangle. But that's actually 30 divs pushed up against each other. That's the trick here. Okay, and then top just means how far is that div from the top of the web page. That's this space up here. Okay, and then the color is blue. You can, change that later if you want. And then we take each div individually and we attach it to the body. We won't be able to see the div unless we attach it to the body. So that's what append child is. Okay. The function we just wrote, what are we doing here? So remember, if there's a mouse move on the window, we're calling this function adjust margin. And we're grabbing the event, which is the mouse event. Okay, the first line here, we're saying a new variable called all divs. Document get elements, plural, by tag name div. So we're getting all the divs that we just created above. We're getting all 30 of them. And we're putting them into a variable called all divs, which is kind of like an array. It's basically an array of divs, okay? So, and then we have a new variable called mouse y, which is going to be equal to client y. And all that means is wherever this mouse is on the web page, in terms of its y position, that's its vertical position, up and down position. Grab that position, which is event client y. I know that's kind of weird looking code. That's just what it looks like. And then put that into our variable called mouse y. So again, that's just the up and down position of the mouse. And then we're going through all the divs that we just grabbed, and we are testing them. We're testing where the mouse is. And we're saying, if mouse y is greater than 50, and mouse Y is less than 150. What does that mean? Let's go look at the page again. So right now, this mouse is greater than 150. And if it's above, it is between here and there is probably 0 to 50. And then now I'm inside there. So what I'm saying is if the mouse is greater than 50, which would be just over that line, and less than 150, which is just in there, so anywhere in here, then change the margin of each div, which is the next line here. So if the mouse is between those two areas, those 2 points, then take all the divs and change the left margin left, to 30 times j. So let's say j equals 0. That would basically be 0. If j equals 1, that would be 30 pixels. So make the left margin 30 pixels. And basically, as we go through this, it's increasing the margin for each div 30 more pixels. So in other words, when j is 1, the margin's 30. When j is 2, the margin's 60. When j is 3, the margin's 90. Okay? So that's what separates these right here. And then you may be wondering, well, why not just separate them by 30? You keep climbing as j climbs up, margin left climbs up. And that is because it's the margin from the left side of the web page. So in other words, when j is 0, the margin's 0 from the left side of the web page. When j is 1, the margin's 30 from the left side of the web page. So it's not the margin in between divs, it's the margin from the left edge of the page. So that's why it has to increase with every div. I hope that makes sense. And so you may be looking at this and saying, well, geez, it looks like there's a separation already. It looks like there's a margin already. Well, that's because the default margin for the body is like 5 or something. So that's why that's separated there. That's just already built in. You can make it 0 if you want, but and then the else statement is basically if it's not greater than 50, if mouse Y is not greater than 50 and not less than 150, meaning is it not in between these 2 lines, then just make the margin from the left 0. Okay, so how to experiment with that? Well, let's see, you can change the number of divs, you can change the widths, you can change the height, the color, the top position, the background color. I already said that, didn't I? This could be a random color. And then down here in the adjust margin, you could change the Y position. And you could change, the margin left is essentially the gap between divs. So you could obviously change that. Okay, so that's it. Have fun with it. I hope you learned something from that. Thanks for joining me.